Indy Mogul.
What's up, Indy Mogul? Russell here with this week's episode of Friday 101, the interview edition. So 2 weeks ago, I had the opportunity to interview Kevin Spacey in New York City to help promote the Jameson First Shot film competition, the result of which you probably already saw. If you didn't, watch last week's episode and come back. Okay, great. I went into this thinking, oh, this'll be fun. I get to interview Kevin Spacey, a big-time Hollywood producer, Dana Brunetti, the winner of the contest, and I'm thinking, I can do an episode on doing interviews the following week. Perfect! But this wasn't the kind of interview I was thinking it would be when I first heard about it, and in retrospect, I really should have realized that. It was a press junket, a series of interviews, one right after another in succession. They're fast, and they have to remain focused on the topic at hand, which is why I didn't really get to go with the questions that you guys sent in. I did get to mention one Moguler, but I'll keep you in suspense on who it was. A lot of what I thought I'd be talking about for this episode was handled professionally. The lighting was taken care of. If we pull this shot back, they had lights in all these places, making sure to light everyone as evenly as possible. The audio was handled professionally, and it's a good thing it was. They must have had one hell of a mic, because there was one boom placed above them to cover all three, and the audio levels fluctuated between high and low quite a bit.
And this year, we said last year, don't write a role for Kevin. This year we really mean it, because he's not going to be in it.
Yeah.
And so don't write a role for Kevin.
When dealing with a situation like this, there's a very helpful filter in Adobe Audition called hard limiting, which keeps the louder parts of audio from going above a certain decibel range while bringing the quieter parts closer to that range.
And this year, we said last year, don't write a role for Kevin. This year we really mean it, because he's not going to be in it.
Yeah.
And so don't write a role for Kevin.
This is the one Griffin mentioned 2 episodes back when talking about how he makes his audio sound so good.
Another thing that I'll do is I'll use a compressor filter.
They even shot the thing for me on a Sony XD cam positioned behind my right shoulder. Everything was taken care of. It was really great. So what's left to learn? Well, quite a few little things as it turns out. So let's go over them. First, get your questions to the interviewee ahead of time. This was something I hadn't considered, though when the PR department recommended I do so, it made perfect sense. That way your subject knows what to expect, and long, awkward silences as they try to think of answers can be avoided. Second, be aware of where the camera is. Watch me make an ass out of myself here as my hand waves in front of the camera, to Kevin Spacey's delight.
Now, my favorite part about your first interview is that you did this in front of the lens a whole bunch of times.
I my hands too much when I talk. I really gotta control that.
You'll see it on this.
So anyway.
It's like just constantly like a flutter.
That comes up on Third tip, practice your questions ahead of time and stick to them as you practiced. I brought my questions with me and was rehearsing how I was going to say them all morning. When I got there, I was handed a sheet and told they had printed my questions out for me. I saw the sheet and noticed that it was still the same general subjects, but with different wording while still being conversational. So I assumed, oh, this must be how they wanted me to say them. Big mistake on my part. Listen to my awful reading of the first question.
Kevin, as creative director and star of the films, you must be very proud of the 3 talented filmmakers that you discovered in year 1. Tell us about your experience in the first year of the competition.
I cringe every time I hear that. Now, there were only a few questions on the page, so a few minutes later I turned to the next page and nothing. No more questions. I'm thinking, is that all they want me to ask? But that wouldn't make any sense. The guy hadn't tapped me on the shoulder to let me know time was almost up. I would later find out that I got the question sheet of the people just before me. An easy mistake to make, as the subject matter of the first few questions was very similar. What I should have done from the start was just go with what I already had, as I'd practiced all morning. Would have made for a more comfortable start on my part. My questions, as I had written them, were in a folder next to me on the ground, and now I needed to get to them while they answered the current question. Which brings me to the 4th point. Make sure to pay attention to your subject. While they answer, don't let your mind wander, don't shuffle your papers or anything like that. Actively listen to what they have to say, and don't focus too much on the next question until you have to. Which brings me to my predicament, as I now had to keep actively listening while awkwardly reaching down for my folder. It took a few tries, but I finally got it, and from that point, everything got much more comfortable for me. I generally tend to be the nervous sort when doing something new like this, where I don't really know what to expect ahead of time, but the most important thing I learned is to not let yourself be intimidated by the task at hand. When I was stammering through my questions at the beginning, waving my hands around in front of the camera and awkwardly grasping at my questions on the floor, I thought, wow, everyone in this room must think I'm a complete idiot. But in the end, all went well. Watching the footage back, everyone was actually just kind of amused by how green I was, but in a fun way, and everyone said they thought it went great.
Thank you guys for sitting down with us.
Congrats on your first.
Thank you. I feel like I settled into it after a little while. You know, the I spent all day going over my version, and I looked at this, I'm like, oh no.
Even later that night when I approached Kevin and Dana during the post-premiere party, they both said the same thing when they saw me. Hey, you were the first-time interview guy. You did a great job, which made me feel a lot better. It's important to remember when doing an interview like this that they need you. In this case, they needed us to promote the Jameson First Shot competition. And it could be said that I needed them to an extent because this was my first interview and I needed it to go well because I want to be able to do more in the future. But in most cases, you're interviewing somebody because they need you. So don't let yourself become intimidated, even when you're in the room with such an accomplished actor as Kevin Spacey. I hope I was able to give some insight into the interview process, albeit a completely different process than I was thinking it would be originally. You never know though, any one of you may one day find yourselves on the press junket circuit and it'll flash through your minds, whatever you do, don't wave your arms around in front of the camera, or Kevin Spacey might laugh at you. Thanks for watching, and join us next week on Indy Mogul for another great full week of programming. Indie News with Griffin on Monday, Awesome Directors Project on Wednesday, Mogul are made Tuesdays and Thursdays, and another Friday 101 to cap it all off. We'll see you then. Oh, yeah, and congratulations to Neil Colvin, the one Moguler I got to mention real quick.
Well, that question came in from one of our viewers, Neil Colvin, and I like the way he worded it. You might like this. Even though Kevin Spacey seems he's extraordinarily mellow, did you still feel anxious? So, yes, was he extraordinarily mellow?
He can be extraordinarily mellow.